So welcome back to C Daily Buzz. Last time we spent the whole episode chasing a ghost, 15 years of investigations, and nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. He built Bitcoin, sent one final message, and disappeared. But here is the part nobody talks about. While Satoshi was vanishing, a teenager in Canada was reading the Bitcoin whitepaper for the very first time. He was 17 years old. He had no money. He had no team. 4 years later, that same kid would build something even bigger than Bitcoin. Not by hiding, by showing up, with his real face, his real name, and his real story. His name is Vitalik Buterin, and today, 15 years after Satoshi disappeared, he lives in Singapore. A 19-year-old who wrote a paper that became a $400 billion network. A 22-year-old who made the most controversial decision in crypto history. A 27-year-old who donated over $1 billion to India during the COVID crisis. And a billionaire today who still washes his own clothes by hand. Let us get into it. The story starts in a small Russian town called Kolomna. January 31st, 1994. A boy named Vitalik is born. When he is 6, his family moves to Toronto, Canada. He does not speak English. He is quiet. He is shy. But when he is 11, he can do 3-digit multiplication in his head, twice as fast as the other kids in his class. He gets placed in a school for gifted children. Classmates remember him as the boy who would solve math problems in his head while everyone else was still writing them down. He does not look like a future tech mogul. He looks like a quiet kid who reads too much. In 2011, when Vitalik is 17, his father tells him about something called Bitcoin. Vitalik ignores it. He thinks digital money sounds like a scam. A few weeks later, he goes back and reads more about it. And this time, something clicks. He starts writing articles about Bitcoin for $5 each, paid in Bitcoin. That same year, at 17, he co-founds Bitcoin Magazine, one of the most important early voices in crypto journalism. By 2012, he is studying computer science at the University of Waterloo. But he keeps thinking about a problem nobody else is solving. Bitcoin can only do one thing. It can send money from one person to another. Vitalik wants to know, what if a blockchain could do anything? In 2013, he drops out of university and spends 6 months traveling the world, meeting Bitcoin developers in person, looking for someone who could solve the problem he was thinking about. He cannot find that person. So in November 2013, at 19 years old, he writes the answer himself, a new white paper. He calls it Ethereum. The key idea in one sentence: Bitcoin is a calculator. It does one thing very well. Ethereum is a computer. It can run anything you can program. The technology that lets Ethereum do this is called smart contracts, pieces of code that live on the blockchain and execute themselves automatically when certain conditions are met. No bank, no lawyer, no middleman, just code running exactly as written, forever. In January 2014, Vitalik walks onto the stage at the Miami Bitcoin conference and unveils Ethereum. He is 20 years old, skinny, awkward, wearing a t-shirt with a cat on it. People in the audience cry. They know they are watching something historic. The video is still on YouTube, a 20-year-old changing crypto forever in real time in a cartoon t-shirt. Later that year, Ethereum raises $18.4 million in a crowdfunding sale. On July 30th, 2015, the network goes live. For our viewers in Southeast Asia, Vitalik was 19 when he wrote that paper. 19. The same age as a high school senior or a university freshman watching this video right now. Whoever is watching, somewhere in Manila, Jakarta, Bangkok, or Ho Chi Minh, the next idea that changes everything could already be in your head. But every revolution gets tested, and for Vitalik, the test came faster than anyone expected. In April 2016, less than a year after Ethereum launched, the community built something audacious on top of it. They called it the DAO, a giant pool of money run entirely by code with no CEO and no board of directors. Investors voted on which projects to fund. Smart contracts handled everything automatically. In just a few weeks, the DAO raised $150 million in Ethereum. At the time, it was one of the largest crowdfunding campaigns in human history. Then, in June 2016, disaster. A hacker found a tiny bug in the DAO's code and started draining money out of the contract, block by block. 50,000 Ethereum here, another 50,000 a few minutes later. The whole crypto world watched it happen on the public blockchain in real time, and nobody could stop it. By the time it ended, roughly $50 million worth of Ethereum had been siphoned out. The code was the law. The code said the withdrawal was allowed. Vitalik was 22 years old, and suddenly, Ethereum was facing a question that had no good answer. Do you let the hacker keep the 50 million because that is what the blockchain says? Or do you reverse it, break your own rules, rewrite history, and save the people who lost their money? This was not a technical question. It was a philosophical one. The whole point of blockchain is that nobody can rewrite history. If Ethereum rewrites history to save its own investors, is it really decentralized anymore? For weeks, the community argued, and in the end, Vitalik, at 22, made the call. Ethereum would do a hard fork, a controlled split of the blockchain. One version would reverse the hack and return the stolen money. The other version would keep the original chain intact, hack and all. The version that reversed the hack kept the name Ethereum. The version that did not became a smaller chain called Ethereum Classic. Both still exist today. This decision made Vitalik the most loved and the most hated person in crypto on the same day. Some called him a benevolent dictator. Others said the entire dream of decentralization had been a lie. But the market answered. Ethereum kept growing. Ethereum Classic faded into the background. And Vitalik, at 22, learned what it feels like to make a billion-dollar decision in real time, with the world watching. Now we get to the part of the story that almost nobody expected. In 2020, a meme coin called Shiba Inu was launched. The developers wanted free marketing, so they sent 50% of the entire Shiba Inu supply, unsolicited, to Vitalik's public wallet. They figured if Vitalik held it, the community would assume he endorsed it. Vitalik did not even open the wallet. For months, the tokens just sat there. Then, in May 2021, Shiba Inu's price exploded. The tokens in Vitalik's wallet were suddenly worth billions of dollars. The entire crypto world was watching one wallet, waiting to see what he would do. On May 12, 2021, he acted. First, he burned 90% of the Shiba Inu he had received. 410 trillion tokens gone forever, sent to a dead wallet nobody can ever access. The Shiba Inu community, instead of being angry, started calling him a king. Then he did the part that made global headlines. The remaining Shiba Inu and a large amount of Ethereum, together worth approximately $1.05 billion, he donated to the Crypto COVID Relief Fund in India. The fund was run by an Indian entrepreneur named Sandeep Nailwal, a co-founder of Polygon. India was being destroyed by the second wave of COVID at that exact moment. Hospitals were running out of oxygen. People were dying in parking lots because there were no beds. Vitalik's donation paid for oxygen concentrators, hospital beds, medicine, logistics. Sandeep Nailwal later estimated the fund directly helped over 600,000 patients on the ground in India. He was 27 years old. Think about that for a second. There was an episode we did about a different crypto founder who promised to give away billions and ended up in prison instead. Vitalik, at 27, just quietly did it. No press tour, no charity foundation in his own name, no tax shelter scheme. He just sent the money. When a reporter asked him later why he did it, he said something that has stayed in the crypto community ever since. Quote, "This is not wealth I created, it is wealth the market gave me. It should go to people who need it more than I do." For our viewers in Southeast Asia, that India COVID donation literally saved lives in the region next door to you. The same era when crypto was being painted as nothing but greed and scams, one 27-year-old reminded everybody what the technology was supposed to be for. He has never stopped giving. In 2023, Vitalik and Sandeep Nailwal funded an additional $100 million for long-term pandemic research. In 2025, he donated $760,000 in Ethereum to privacy messaging apps SimpleX Chat and Session. And here is where the story gets strange in a different way. In early 2023, Vitalik made an announcement that surprised everyone. He had become a permanent resident of Singapore. He could have lived anywhere, New York, London, Tokyo. He chose Singapore. Why? The clearest crypto regulations in the world through the Monetary Authority of Singapore. English plus Mandarin, zero capital gains tax. And he had been quietly attending crypto conferences across Southeast Asia for years already. To him, Singapore was not exotic, it was home. At the Singapore FinTech Festival in November 2023, he delivered a keynote on a concept he calls decentralized society. The message: blockchain should not be about financial speculation. It should be about giving ordinary people tools that governments and corporations cannot take away. In November 2024, the biggest Ethereum developer conference in the world, DevCon, was held in Bangkok. Vitalik was the main speaker. 3,000 developers from across Southeast Asia and the world attended. In October 2025, he headlined Token 2049 in Singapore. 25,000 attendees, Marina Bay Sands turned into a pop-up crypto city. His life today is one of the strangest contradictions in modern tech. As of early 2026, Vitalik holds approximately 240,000 Ethereum. That is around $400 to $700 million depending on the market. He is, by any measure, one of the wealthiest people under 35 in the entire world. And yet, he washes his own clothes by hand. He stays in hostels and budget Airbnbs when he travels. His wardrobe is famously minimalist, a few t-shirts, often featuring cartoon cats or unicorns. He gives talks in the same clothes he wore to breakfast. When reporters ask him about his lifestyle, he shrugs. He says, quote, "I am not a humanitarian, I am just a person. A man who could buy a yacht, doing his laundry in a hostel sink in Bangkok. That is Vitalik Buterin." Now let us close this series. 3 episodes ago, we explained what Bitcoin actually is, a protest in the form of a PDF written during the worst financial crisis of our lifetime. 2 episodes ago, we tried to find the person who wrote it. We failed. 15 years of investigation and Satoshi is still a ghost. But today, we found a different answer. While Bitcoin's creator chose to disappear, Ethereum's creator chose the opposite. He shows up. He uses his real name. He gives away his money. He lives in our region. The anonymous genius of Bitcoin, the visible genius of Ethereum. One sealed inside a 15-year mystery, one walking around Marina Bay in a unicorn t-shirt. Bitcoin is 17 years old. Ethereum is 10 years old. Crypto is no longer an experiment. It is infrastructure. And the people who decide what it becomes next are the ones who watched all of this happen. Many of them right here in Southeast Asia, watching videos exactly like this one. That is the story of this 3-part series. From the PDF that nobody understood, to the ghost who built it, to the kid who built the next thing. The revolution did not end with Satoshi. It found a second author. And the next chapter is already being written. Maybe by someone watching this video right now. Maybe by you. Drop a like, hit subscribe. Multiple subtitle languages are on for our friends across Asia. And we will see you in the next one.